So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, we're going to be continuing what we had been doing. Let's say, so before we were doing Du'a al-istiftah. In the last class, we did Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayai, and we also did these segments of Du'a al-istiftah. And by the way, you might say, well, okay, which one of these is Du'a al-istiftah? So remember the word istiftah. Istiftah means an opening. The istiftah means a key. Istiftah means you're seeking opening. So all of those are actually right words for it, okay? So dua al-istiftah would be right after takbirat al-ihram. What is takbirat al-ihram? It's basically the first takbirah that you would start your salah with. So Allahu Akbar, and then you would, let's say, start the official start for prayer. So that Allahu Akbar, that's basically takbirat al-ihram. Right after that, you would say one of these du'as, okay? One of these du'as. Is it Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayai kama ba'adta bayna al-mashriqi wal-maghrib Allahumma naqqini min khatayai kama yunaqqa ath-thawb al-abyadu min ad-danas Allahumma اغسلني من خطاياي بالثلج والماء والبرد, or is it سبحانك اللهم بحمدك وتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك? Or what if I say وجهت وجهي الذي فطر السماوات والأرض and this whole thing? Wait a minute. Can I not say any of these du'as and just Allahu Akbar and right away start with the Fatiha? You sure can. This is a sunnah. You can just start and do the Fatiha without even doing any of these du'as. That's number one. Number two, can I do all of these du'as? You can do all of these du'as. Can I read it off my little book that I'm training in? You sure can read it off your book or your laptop or phone. You sure can read it in that way. Okay, so the one that we left off with was وجهت وجهي الذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين. We yesterday read, I know we didn't get that recorded, but we read together and kind of practiced there. So now we're taking a new dua al-istiftah, and let's see it. Allahumma rabba Jibreel. Okay, here we go. This is it right here. Allahumma رب جبرائيل or جبريل وميكائيل وإسرافيل فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدني لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. Okay, so you got the English part of it right there. Allahumma rabba Jibreel wa Mikaela wa Israfil fatir as-samawati wal ard. Okay, here we go. I guess they did it for you. Okay, but let's just see the translation really quick. Oh Lord, Lord of Jibreel. Who's Jibreel? Or is it Jibreel or Jibra'il? Which one is it? Remember that qira'at, and most of the qira'at we had seen earlier in the class. So you got some of it is in the A, and E, for example, or some of the qira'at would vary in tasheel al-hamza, in making the hamza as a, or is it going to be completely omitting the hamza and making it as an a and not an a, but in making basically a, is it an a, or is it going to be the a sound is going to be an a sound? So think of it as basically the different dialects, and that's basically what it is, okay? So Jibreel is right, Jibra'il is right, because even in other qira'at, you'll have, for example, Abraham in other qira'at, Ibrahim in other qira'at, etc., and so forth. Okay, وَمِيكَائِيل وَإِسْرَافِيل. So wait a minute, who are these? So those are different angels. You got Jibreel alayhi salam is basically the angel that is between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the prophets. So he would basically deliver the message. Mikael is basically the angel that is responsible for, now it slipped my mind, but isn't he the one that's responsible for on Judgment Day to blow in the horn? Or no, that's Israfil. Israfil is the one that's
Mikael
responsible
is
for
charge of
blowing.
I thought he's responsible for the wind and
For the
environment.
wind and rain, am I right? You're right. You're right, not me, right? The wind and the rain. I think that's it. إسرافيل is the one that's responsible for blowing the horn. فاطر السماوات والأرض. فاطر السماوات. But wait a minute here. Where's Uzrael in this? Okay. One thing is that Uzrael, the name Uzrael was only mentioned in non-authentic ahadith. Okay. Non-authentic ahadith, and that he is the malak, as the angel of death. Okay. But Uzrael is not mentioned in an authentic hadith. That's number one. Number two, the ones to take the souls of people is not necessarily Uzrael. It is different angels. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرْسِلُ عَلَيْكُمْ حَفَظًا. Hafadha is basically the different angels of death. Okay. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You are, let's see, right there, creator of the heavens and the earth, knower of the seen and unseen. And let's say, you are the arbitrator between your servants in which they have disputed. عالم الغيب والشهادة, that was the seen and the unseen. أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون. اهدني, so guide me to the truth by your leave in that which they have differed, for verily you guide whom you will to the straight path. Okay, let me break it down right there. So the Lord of Jibra'il, Mikael, so those are the different angels. فاطر السماوات والأرض. Okay, so why did the prelude start with Jibril and Mikael and Israfil? Because if we're talking about figures, he gave you the most mighty figures out there, and those were these angels. Those are the most mighty figures. So if he is the Lord of the most mighty figures and the Lord of the most mighty things, which basically is in the heavens and the earth, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you figures and giving you different things that you would see, basically, the heavens and the earth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is letting you resonate and relate to that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the mightiest one there is, period. And that the mightiest figures would basically be creatures by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator. Okay, same thing. If you're looking at the mightiest, the different things in the world that you would see in the galaxies, the different things that you might see in the heavens and the earth, and the heavens and the earth, or the skies and the earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is then taking you to realize, well, he is beyond persons and he is beyond places. Samawat wal ard, that's basically a place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond people, beyond angels, beyond anyone, and also beyond anything. Okay, so what does that mean? The inference is عالم الغيب والشهادة. He is the Lord of the unseen. Even when we're speaking about time, he is beyond time. He is beyond time because he is the one that goes beyond al-ghaib. Al-ghaib is usually one, either something that is confined within time. So we're talking about the past, or we're talking about the future. Or al-ghaib could also be something that is unseen, meaning it's not present to you, but it's there to someone else. Okay, that's also ghaib. So when you're saying alim al-ghaibi wa shahada, it's taking that moment to recognize that the Lord Almighty is beyond anyone, beyond anything, and beyond any time. So that is why the Lord Almighty is alim al-ghaibi wa shahada. What is a shahada? A shahada is basically anything that one may witness, whether we're speaking about someone witnessing, like the malaika, or whether we're speaking about other people, or whether what people would be observing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond persons, beyond place, beyond time. So you look at it, beyond figures, beyond place, beyond time. Okay? أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون. Since he is beyond all of that, figures, place, and time, so therefore the Lord Almighty is going to be the center of truth. أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون. You rule amongst your servants in what they had differed in. What does that mean? Are we talking about having differences in what is right and what is wrong? Or are we talking about having differences in probably rights? The daughter is saying, Mom, you abused me. The mother is saying, well, hey, I was here doing parenting. And then, of course, mother, from her narrative, from her angle, she was basically practicing parenting. The child may think, well, no, that was abuse. Okay, so this is ikhtilaf between the child and basically the parent, for example, in this situation. This is basically this dispute in between the two. Is it exceeding the limits in parenting, or is it within the limits of discipline? What really is it? So there are these disputes. So in that situation, you would recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one, since you recognize he's beyond figures, beyond place, beyond time, then therefore he is the center to defining truth and defining principle. So you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say, and then basically make that confession and bring in that humble stance of yours right there with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and say, ihdini lima اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنه. So guide me in whatever there was a dispute in, to basically find truth. Because as human beings, definitely we can, at different stages of our life, different impacts, different influences, what you would imagine in your teenage, and you would think that this is the ultimate truth. By the time you probably get to 30, you'd be like, I can't believe I actually used to think that way. By the time you go to 40, your thoughts are completely different. In each and every single stage, you basically mature, you grow, your vision basically expands. And hey, what if we're speaking about other things? Same thing. Or different fitan will also change. The fitna that probably a teenager might be facing is different than the fitna that a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old might be facing. That's why the Sahaba, in particular Umar ibn al-Khattab, he used to say, Ya Allah, make our faith be the faith of al-ajaiz, the elderly. Why the elderly? Because they had passed so many milestones in their life that they are so hard to convince them of anything else, because they had went through so many stages and so many experiences that it had come to their mind that there's no other way but this way, because I had tried the other ways and it didn't work. And therefore, when you see Iman al-Ajaiz, it is firm, it is strong, and basically steadfast. Okay, so when you see ihdini lima اختلف فيه, when you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Umar ibn al-Khattab, okay, still didn't understand the dua of Umar ibn al-Khattab. So Umar ibn al-Khattab was basically wanting a stubborn faith. A stubborn faith that is not going to be altered, that is not going to be influenced by anything else that surrounds him, because that's what the Iman al-Ajaiz would look like. That's what the faith of an elderly would look like. They would be so stubborn, they're not willing whatsoever to rethink anything, because they had went through so many stages that they are right now in firm belief that they are right. And there's no way that you can convince an elderly that they are wrong, because hey, they had that experience, that they will not actually change it. Now, here's one thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to be having a blind faith, but here we're basically asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the things that there were differences of opinions on, to basically match what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent as the truth. So I'm not asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to just be stubborn, whatever decisions I'm making. No, it's asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us stubborn on haqq. Okay, to make us firm on practicing truth, to make us firm and deliberate, determined when it comes to, one, recognizing the truth, two, being consistent and committed to it. إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط المستقيم. For you guide whom you will to the right path. That's basically when we say the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Is this Sirat al-Mustaqim? Is that metaphorical to just say the right path, meaning the path of Shari'at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way, the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or is this talking about, no, literal Sirat Mustaqim on Judgment Day, that bridge between that place that people will be combining and basically getting resurrected in, and that bridge that connects basically that considerate field and Jannah, and underneath that bridge would be hellfire. Okay, that's also called Sirat al-Mustaqim. Okay, is that is the Sirat? Is this that literal Sirat? Or is this Sirat al-Mustaqim to mean metaphorical? So it's both. Okay, so is Sirat would be, yes, that path, because the word Sirat actually means path. So whether you're speaking about the path in adopting and embracing the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, and that's a type of life, that's a path that you would take in life, or whether we're speaking about the hereafter, that there is this path, okay, that leads to Jannah. So you're saying, Ya Allah, keep me steadfast. And in order to stay steadfast, to get to Jannah and basically cross that bridge, well, in order to have the momentum, the ability, and to have the momentum that is necessary to cross that bridge, you basically have to have already invested in this dunya, in as-sirat al-mustaqim, in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, let's continue with the other hadith. Allahu akbaru kabira, Allahu akbaru kabira, Allahu akbaru kabira. Okay, 3 times. والحمد لله كثيرا, والحمد لله كثيرا, والحمد لله كثيرا, وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا. 3 times. سبحان الله بكرة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان من نفخه ونفثه وهمزه. Okay. Allah is the most great. Allah is the... So why most great and not the greatest? I don't know. Excuse my poor English. Much praise is for Allah. Much praise is for Allah. Much praise is for Allah. And I declare the perfection of Allah in the early morning and the late afternoon. Subhanallah bukratan wa asila. Say that again. I declare the perfection of Allah in the early morning and the late afternoon. I'll explain it. I take refuge with Allah from the devil, from his pride, his poetry, and his madness. Nafkhihi, you called it pride. Nafthihi, he called it poetry. Hamzihi, he called it madness. I'll explain it. Okay. Allahu Akbaru Kabira, Allahu Akbaru Kabira, Allahu Akbaru Kabira. By the way, this dua was actually made by Ubadah ibn Samit. Okay. And then the Prophet ﷺ then asked Ubadah ibn Samit what he had said. And he said, this is what I said. And then the Prophet ﷺ tells him that he had seen 33 angels racing to basically take that dhikr to raise it in the heavens. Okay. And some scholars debated, well, can we actually make our own dhikr based on this event? Can we make our own dhikr? Or does it have to be ma'thur, meaning that the Prophet ﷺ had said? That's a different story. Okay, what is Allahu Akbaru Kabira? Does it mean Allahu Akbaru Kabira? Does that mean in place, time, or figures. It means all. It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond all. Just like right there, he's beyond figures, beyond place, beyond time, and that's the same thing. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically the magnificent, he's beyond all, place, time, figures, spaces, whatever you want to call it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically beyond all. And remember when we did in Surah Ash-Shura, and we basically went in Surah Ash-Shura and we went in details with Surah Ash-Shura, and we said لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, and basically affirming وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There's nothing compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for he is as-Sami'. He is still all hearing. So yes, nothing is compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is compared to mean when we're speaking about an actual comparison, or whether we're speaking about nothing is compared to Allah, meaning in the magnificence. Okay, so nothing is compared literally in the actual essence, and nothing is compared metaphorically in the magnificence. Okay. Walhamdulillahi kathira, and all the praise and many praise is basically due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you say alhamdulillahi kathira, you're basically saying, instead of me saying, the Prophet ﷺ comes to, I believe it was Salama who was making so many of the same dhikr. So the Prophet ﷺ basically taught her, we're going to come across that hadith, to just say, Alhamdulillah, based on the numbers, or as many as stars there are out there, and Alhamdulillah, as the number of different pebbles, and Alhamdulillah, etc. So basically, instead of making it in numerous times, just say, well, Alhamdulillah, as the numbers of, let's say, as million times or trillion times or whatever the biggest number is. Okay, walhamdulillahi kathira. So here, alhamdulillah kathira, alhamdulillah kathira, alhamdulillah kathira, basically making the same dhikr 3 times each. Allahu Akbar, making it 3 times, alhamdulillah, making it 3 times. Subhanallah bukratan wa asila. What is subhanallah? We talked about subhanallah. We said subhan, the root sabaha, which can mean to glide. Sabaha can mean to swim. Sabaha, to when you're gliding and swimming, you're basically gliding within a center. You're not just gliding with just anywhere randomly, but there is a specific center yet you're gliding around, or else it would be an absurdity. It would be in loss. But you've got the subhan, and think of it as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the center of all those orbits. Okay, the orbit of gliding, the orbit of dhikr, the orbit of your life, the orbit of everything. Basically, those orbits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the center. So if you're thinking about legislature, you're thinking about decisions, you're thinking about people, you're thinking about life, you're thinking about wealth, you're thinking about that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be the center, that you would let this orbit basically circle around. So that's subhanallah. You're taking a moment to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the center of your life, is the center of life, and is the center of your life. So subhanallah bukratan wa asila. What did they say? I declare the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the early morning and the early afternoon. Okay, well, that's one way of looking at subhana. Okay, but subhana could also mean that you recognize, you declare that everything is basically circling, everything is basically turning, everything is basically gliding, and everything orbits around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every orbit, it basically goes around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing can orbit outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's powers. Nothing can orbit outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's powers. Bukratan wa asila. We're speaking bukra. Bukra is basically early in the morning. Al-asil is basically throughout the night. So early in the morning and evening. That's in So why bukratan wa asila? Is it that it was a common notion that, different faiths would think that there's a God in the early afternoon and another God in the late in the evening, another God for rain, another God for love, and another God for hate, and another God for fire, and a God for water, and etc. So this is in order for us to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one God throughout the day, throughout the night, and in fact every existing thing basically surrounds and orbits around to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one to grant the provision, to grant it granted its own creation, and for its continuation as well. It all basically goes around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. I want you to look at this one. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. This one is a separate dua. This is actually not part of that. That's why they put you this one in these quotation marks. And with these quotation marks, that's to tell you, well, this one, this is where it came, this is where it ends up. And let's see, on number 2, they told you akhrajahu Abu Dawood versus the first one, Allahu Akbar, this one. That one was, ironically, that they were supposed to put it here, that number 5 footnote, but that's okay. So, oh, wait a minute. So what am I doing here? That's kind of weird. This is supposed to be a footnote. Okay, so this one's the footnote number 1. So what is this 5? That must have been a typo. Right, that must have been a typo. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم من نفخه ونفثه وهمزه. أعوذ بالله, I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in shaitan. Now, here's the thing. I know that the translator right there, he basically translated nafkhihi to mean pride, nafthihi to mean poetry, and hamzihi to mean madness. Let me break it down. So when you say nafkhihi, if you were to go back to the root, nafakha actually means blow. Okay? Does that mean that shaitan himself is blown up, literally? Or is this metaphorically? Because nafkh can also mean blow and basically blowing, okay? This is to blow as well. So is this talking about Iblis physically blown up? And what's a blown up thing? A blown up thing is basically a metaphor to basically reveal some kind of a hudud nafs. A person or someone might exaggerate their reality and actually think big of themselves, when in reality they're really empty of space. They're empty of nothing. They think let's probably look at somebody that they think they have it all, they think they know it all, but in reality, once you test them, you realize that they're full of ignorance. Somebody might actually think, oh, they've got the most money or the best and most important, let's say, position, and they would exaggerate their position or exaggerate what they really contain. And you discover that these people, it's more of a fake blow up. It's a fake appearance. In the reality, it's really full of air, full of vacuum. It's basically nothing. So is that the nafkh? Or is it literally that shaitan can actually blow on us certain blows that might affect us negatively physically, or maybe affect us spiritually, or maybe affect us mentally? Who knows? Both interpretations are actually mentioned. So some scholars actually said in nafkh, it says metaphorical. This is to talk about him being arrogant, okay? And his arrogance is basically what's leading him to misguiding us. And that we would take, in the arrogance that he's got, we would get manipulated to believing that, yeah, if I were to probably run away with my boyfriend or whatever it is, that, hey, I'm going to basically live happily ever after, and so forth. Okay. So what is that? Well, that's shaitan basically letting that person get manipulated to thinking that happiness lies there. That's that nafkh. That nafkh in giving you a certain idea, in giving you a certain manipulation that, yeah, if you only run away, you're going to live happily ever after. If you're going to leave the religion, then you're taking away all the restrictions and you're going to be basically living quote unquote freedom and so forth. That's enough. So basically, is it an actual nafkh, like I said, or is it that him physically, him, okay, there we go. Or is it that he is actually blown physically? Okay, so is it, like I said, some scholars actually said that he literally blows and affects us, affects us probably while we're asleep, okay, or maybe while we're awake, make some certain air or breathing on us that would probably affect our faith, affect us mentally, affect us physically. Who knows? This is all alam al-ghayb. We don't really know how that works. We know that, for example, in a hadith that is authentic, that shaitan urinates in the person's ears when they don't wake up for Fajr. So how does that even happen? What does that look like? And what, that's all ghaib. There's no way that I can prove to you that this actually happens and somehow bring a specimen to show you that. There's no way. This is ghaib. And just because it's ghaib, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The reason why I believed in all of this is because I believed in Muhammad ibn Abdullah, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak of himself, but it's actually wahy. وَنَفْثِهِ. What is a nafth? Nafkh is a blow with no saliva. Nafth is to blow with little saliva. Okay? Is to blow with little saliva. So when you're saying nafth, that's why when we would make the ruqya, we would make the ruqya with certain blows, but the blow would contain little particles of saliva, okay? Just little particles of saliva. And that's basically to give, of course, the dhikr that the person had done that's going to be affecting the person, and basically barakah. Okay, so this isn't, of course, if you've got some illness, COVID or anything like that, you definitely don't want to do that. All right, so does a shaitan actually give some kind of a blow, with some saliva? Is that enough? So here, of course, he basically said his poetry. Okay, so enough is not necessarily poetry. Some scholars did mention that it was poetry, but enough, like I said, is basically the nafth is basically the blow that with little saliva. So we're speaking about different words. Remember when we're doing what is النفاثات في العقد? Are there basically the witches? The witches are basically the women that engage in magic, and in order to do their basically the magic spell, they would do certain things and then they would blow in it and basically do certain spits on it. So that's enough. So even shaitan, he can use blow with containing certain saliva in order to affect us mentally, spiritually, physically, and all of the different things, basically to use that as a way to relate and basically touch us and basically affect us, to harm us. And certainly when we're speaking about harm, we're not just speaking about harm in terms of, we usually think of harm just physical, but no, right now, of course, we could see that speaking about mental illness and the change in people's mental illness, even though we have a lot more ease than ever before that happened to humanity. Okay, but we're seeing mental illness basically in the decline. And one of the main reasons we would say is basically shaitan. One of the main reasons is shaitan basically giving, whether it's in nafkh or in nafth. So it's affecting the people mentally, it's affecting the people physically, it's affecting the people spiritually, and definitely if it's affecting this and that and that and that individual, then we're speaking about a whole society. وَهَمْزِهِ. الهمز is any type of a communication, but is not by touching. Okay, so we're speaking about we're doing a communication, but this communication is by one distance, and any communication that is not physical. So we're speaking about al-hams. It's not a physical one, but it's harming from afar, and this is al-hams. Okay, so here we translated it madness, but it's not madness. It's actually al-hams. That's why we say وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Okay, what does that look like? Al-humaza, al-hams. Somebody comes in and this girl basically gives to another girl some kind of a body gesture to make fun of that other girl, whether it's her clothes or whether it's her appearance, or do something like with an eye look or something like that in order to basically mean something about the other person. Is there a physical thing that happened? Did they say anything verbally? They didn't say anything verbally, but they said something with a body gesture. That's ilhams. Okay, with that body gesture. That's the body gesture that even shaitan can use. So we're speaking about a breath. We're speaking about breath with certain saliva. In other words, something that's coming out and touching us physically. And we're speaking about having the influence from far. In other words, think of it as a remote type of influence on the person. Is that an influence that is like exorcism? Exorcism has differences of opinions between scholars, whether that is real or whether that is impossible. And the reason for that, I do have videos in relationship to that. I'll just make it short, okay? I'll just make it short. So the first group of scholars, they said that this is possible, and that yes, shaitan can enter the body and therefore harm the body by entering the body and controlling to a certain level that body. Okay, the second opinion said that no, that's impossible, because if we were to look at the ayah, for example, ما كان لي عليكم من سلطان, I had no power over you, إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي. And they would say, well, this is a da'wah, using nafkh, using hams, and basically having this kind of a spew on that person and affecting them. That's the second opinion. The second opinion, they said, no, it's not that they were literally controlling their body, because, hey, right there. So the first opinion, they also had an evidence from the Quran, and they said, hey, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَقُمُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُمُ الَّذِي يَتْخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِ. In regards to interest, he said they would not really, and to give that simile, that they would basically behave as if they were inflicted by the shaitan and basically the devil's touch. So they said, here it is, there's the word mess. So then they disputed whether that is a metaphorical mess or whether that is a literal mess. Meaning, what is the word mess? Mess actually means touch. So are we talking about an actual touch to mean entering the body? Are we talking about meaning exorcism? Or are we talking about touch to mean that nafth and hams, basically that type of a touch from the outside and not necessarily controlling on the inside? Okay, so just to mention that one. What do I believe in? I believe exorcism is real. All you need to do is really see those cases and experiment those cases. You see them right before your eyes. I didn't used to believe that. I was always thinking that I'm going to be a rational person. No, that's not true. It can happen. But when you actually see those cases, and I would do ruqya, you would see those cases in front of you, doing things that they would not normally do. And you know what? It's beyond human capacity to do. You would really know what I'm talking about. It's nothing that I can convince you in, to be honest. You would really have to see it to believe it. And that's all I could tell you. You would really have to see it to believe it. And I had seen it and I believe it. And Hey, if you don't want to believe it and you would like to be a person that is, very fond of saying, hey, I'm a rational person and I don't believe that stuff. I think it's legendary. I think it's myth. Well, good for you. That's a considerable opinion. You can adopt that opinion and it's not kufr. That's okay. All right. So we'll, inshallah, it is 3:22 and I promise I'll make it short. So what I'll do tomorrow, inshallah, we'll basically Allahumma Rabba Jibra'il wa Mikail wa Israfil فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدني لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. Okay, where was it? Is this what we're supposed to do? Yeah. Allahumma Rabba, here we go. Allahumma Rabba Jibra'il wa Mikail wa Israfil فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدني لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. So you could see right there, this is the English side to kind of help you. I'm going to do it again. اللهم رب جبرائيل وميكائيل وإسرافيل فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدني لما اختلف فيه اهدني لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. This one's quite easy. الله أكبر كبيرا الله أكبر كبيرا الله أكبر كبيرا والحمد لله كثيرا. Repeat it 3 times basically. والحمد لله كثيرا والحمد لله كثيرا وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا. This one's also 3 times. وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان أعوذ بالله من الشيطان من نفخه ونفثه وهمزه من نفخه ونفثه وهمزه. So if somebody wants to read any of this, I'd be happy to listen to it. If not, we could just end it, inshallah. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer the questions, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Go ahead, khairat.
Jazakallah khair. I just want to understand. I mean, these du'as, most of them are for beginning of prayer, salah, right? So I'm thinking, is it possible that one can even say them when, like generally outside that
Right.
period?
So all the du'as in this book, you can do it at any time. Okay.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be exclusive before salah. At any
No,
time. You're sitting outside on the porch and just wanted to read these du'as. That's absolutely fine.
no, Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم.
تبارك الله على عيشة وزوز وقربها تبارك الله على عيشة وزوز
يا حاجة
لا كانت في ماني صوتها كانت عيشة وزوز مشى الماليزيانا ولا فين عيشة وزوز الله يحفظك ويقوهم ذلك الله يعمر في الطومات تبك إن شاء الله تكون بحالك
chance.
ربي يحفظها حاجة. بركة بركة بركة. So this is it inshallah everybody.